Woo! Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here from the Kayak Fishing Show, live, brought to you by Ballast Point. We're going for the long fin lager today. Another nice drinkable beer on a hot day. Getting ready for the weekend. Hope you're all doing good. Thanks for joining us already. Some good fishing going on here locally. I just saw a post from a guy locally posted a what was it? It looked like it was a good 50 to 60 pound white sea bass caught out off La Jolla. So if you want to get out this weekend, I'm actually going to be fishing tomorrow and then Monday going offshore. There's been some bluefin tuna around as well. I don't know if you guys saw, we were talking about the gentleman that lost his life. We talked about it a little bit in Texas. It did turn out that he wasn't wearing a PFD and he didn't have lights on his boat and he was out at night. Now, it's still a terrible thing, but, I mentioned it before, let's look out for ourselves, take those precautions, please, always wear that PFD and have that light on your boat. If you're out there in low light conditions, we have a lot of fog here in the morning. So, make sure you're visible. We it's just a terrible thing. We hate to hear about anybody getting hurt. So we got a good show here today, but of course we want to make sure that you bring our questions and comments and shares and all that. That really helps for us have a better show and also makes the sponsors much happier if they get a lot of engagement and a lot of shares and all that. So bring on the questions. Bring on the questions. So today, I've got an old friend of mine. He's been a kayak angler for a very, very long time. You guys all know that how much fun I've been having, and I'll pop this up here. I've been having so much fun on this blue sky with my jet engines on it. Of course, that's not the real noise of the Torqeedo. But that is my torpedoed blue sky, the green Torqeedo thing. I mean, that thing is so much fun. So I know you guys have seen me playing with that thing, and my buddy Jeff, who's been a kayak fisherman again for a really long time, got involved with Torqeedo some years ago, and now is like, I think he's in charge of the whole company now, is all I see him doing all the time. So with no further ado, let's bring Jeff Little up onto the screen. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
Hey, I got about half of your screen being taken up by your keyboard.
All right.
So there you go. That's better. How you doing, man? You're out in like Tennessee or something right now.
I left Tennessee this morning. I was at Jackson Kayak this morning yesterday I was working with the team down there on some things that hopefully we can show at ICAST this year. And drove up about, I think, 8 hours up to Farmville, Virginia. We got a demo day at Appomattox River Company tomorrow. So I'm setting up the Torqeedo tent and let people take it for a spin.
Oh, really? What kind of kayaks are you going to have it on?
I got one rigged up on a Bonafide SS 127.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. It's amazing how far these Torqeedos have come. I mean, I got some Torqeedos, the ones that are actually on my blue sky, quite a few years ago. Probably 5 years ago, around then. And they just keep getting better and better, from everything I've seen. And the acceptance has come a long way.
Yeah, I would say the market wasn't really right for this to grow 5 years ago. They've been, in its current state, not including the mount, but the motor itself, it actually hasn't changed that much in 9 years. The power and torque and everything that we had when they came out with that, 9 years ago is the same as what we have today with the ultralight. But what's changed is the mounting, and that just makes it more useful for a lot of different reasons. For stowing the unit during transport, removing it quickly, having better trim. So
yeah, like I said, I had them. Like I said, the motors I have there, and I had put them on a Kraken.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, I just wasn't thrilled with the mounting setup.
Right.
And now I've seen what you guys have out and the stuff we showed. We had the guys, Daniel from Primal was on here. And I know there's some other guys that are really doing some innovative stuff to make these a very, very clean setup.
Yeah. So when I started working for Torqeedo, it's been more than a year and a half ago. We had been working with Yak Attack to develop a mount, and that development ended. I think there was mostly just a culture clash between American product development and German product development, and we made the decision, all right, let's start fresh. And I started working with the German engineers at that point and had several different trips to Germany, and their product development is interesting. It's totally different than anything that I had done working with product development with Wilderness Systems or Kokatat or any other company where you brainstorm and you spitball ideas and you try things and you prototype and you learn from what's good and bad about the prototype. They're a much more regimented pathway to develop a product, and they set all the functions first as to what it's going to do. And one of the ones I knew early on that we weren't going to be able to do is to have the Torqeedo mount here and the power pole sit right on top of it. And that's where I started working with Daniel. Then it was Easy Mount, but then became Primal, and then Trey at Innovative Sportsman, so that they could have aftermarket mounts to satisfy that need if somebody wanted, power pole and Torqeedo in the same spot. That being said, I just watched, Scott Butcher had a video up this afternoon of his setting his up, and he has Torqeedo, power pole. And, there are other ways to get that sort of setup on there.
You give it to kayak fishermen, man. They've always been innovative. Let's say hello to a couple people who are watching. Hey, Dave, thanks for joining us every week. Ulf, my good friend, cheers to you. Ulf is in Sweden. John, how you doing, brother? Scott, I'm glad you were able to join us this week as well. Dave, KAAO Panfish tournament on Saturday. Cool. I'm just not a tournament guy, but you know what I always like about tournaments? I like the gathering. The tournament fishing has never appealed to me, but I love the gatherings afterwards or before, and just sharing information and telling stories and all that. Hey, Serge, how you doing? How's things up in Ottawa? Is it finally getting to be summer up there? Felipe from Mexico, how are you? Diana, thanks for joining us. I think Diana won a prize from us last week. And Gary, did you see the big white sea bass around the way? I believe was hooked up on a kayak. Yeah, well, I said I saw a post from earlier today of a probably 60-pound white sea bass that was caught in La Jolla today. That's kind of our hellos, but I'll throw out our first question. Dave, what is the battery size required for these for duration?
So with the ultralight, there's two different battery options. There's a 320 watt hour battery, and then there's a 915 watt hour battery, which is going to give you basically tripling the range. To give you an idea what the 915 watt hour battery does, and they are proprietary. It's not like you can get a Torqeedo and then go out and buy uh, 12 or 24, 36 or 48 volt batteries yourself and do it. It comes with the complete.
Yeah, the Torqeedo is a system. It's the whole package.
Right. But that 915 actually was a product that came to the travel motor, which is the 3 horsepower equivalent Torqeedo motor. And Torqeedo makes motors from 1 horsepower to the 3, which is the travel motor, which we have, I think, over 70,000 of those in the field worldwide. So we sell a lot of travel motors. To 5 and 8 horsepower, there's a 20, and then you get into the deep blue systems, which use BMW car batteries, and they're 40, 80, and there's a 100 kilowatt motor that we won an award at the Miami Boat Show this year. If you do the math, that's about 130 horsepower motor. So with commercial applications, with any of these, it comes down to how hard are you pushing? How much wattage are you asking to come out of there? I'll give you a practical application that'll make sense to most kayak anglers. The longest day that I've had with my Torqeedo Ultralight 915 watt-hour battery, I was trolling for striped bass in Maryland's Upper Chesapeake Bay, and I covered 25.3 miles. And at the end of that, I had 5% of the battery remaining. Some of that day, I was using it at full speed, 5.5 mile an hour, because I see birds dropping, and I'm like, I got to get on them now. Right. And that got me there quick. Some of it I was not using at all. I'd found the fish, and I was drifting with the tide and jigging on them. And some of it I was trolling it, 3.2 miles per hour or whatever speed, I was catching them on that day. So it's sort of a mixed energy, peak output that you use when you fish. No one ever uses it at 400 watts, all at once. If you were to do that, the math, and it depends on which kayak it's on, but they range between 11.4 miles of range at full speed, and I think some of the boats that I've seen that have more efficient hulls are getting I think 12.3 miles of range at full speed. So
yeah, I think what people really need to understand with these trolling motors or motors is that, like I said, is that diminishing returns. You can, well, for instance, my example, I always tell people is when I did have it on my Kraken, I went out with my buddy. I put that thing in the water first thing, and I trolled all day. A full day of fishing anyway. It was probably 6-7 hours, and but very slow speed live bait trolling. And at the end of that, I had 50% of my battery left.
Right.
And so I told my buddy who didn't have a motor, I go, hey, hold on, I'll tow you in that. And we were like a mile out. And at full speed, I burned up that 50% of that battery. Yep. With towing the two of them. So at normal cruising speed, these things really, you get a lot of distance, a lot of hours on them. But you put that thing full bore, you're just sucking down the gas.
I use a lot of, I'm frequently, if I'm bass fishing, if on the river or even largemouth fishing, just tracing the contour of a bank, chucking a spinnerbait, a crankbait up there. I move a lot at 0.8 miles per hour, and you steer with your feet, and you're just constantly casting, hands free. Round that up to say 1 mile an hour. Most of the boats have a range of between 91 and over 100 miles of range at 1 mile an hour. So it's a stupid amount of range with low speeds. Somewhere in the middle, you have nice cruising speeds where you could do like what I did and covered 25 miles in a day. So
right. Well, let's jump in a couple here. We have Alex from Pickering, Ontario. How you doing, Alex? Mark Berenger, I need one of these for my live water sports. Have you seen?
Right. I got to jump in on that. I've tested that boat, and I actually put the Torqeedo travel motor on there. Mark, if you were to set that up, that's going to be the fastest thing. That is the fastest thing I've ever tested. It's a unique catamaran style hull. It comes down, then comes all the way back up, and it's that channel in the middle. I don't know whether it just feeds it clean water or just the design of that particular stand-up paddleboard. It just eats up the water without making much wake in its scoots. I was getting 6.8 miles per hour with the travel motor on that particular the L4 Expedition. I got a camo one, and it is a beautiful boat.
Those things are cool. Those are really, really cool boats.
Yeah, they're fun for sure.
We got Weston Grote saying hi. Robert Brown is checking in from our YouTube channel. How you doing, Robert? Alex, I have the Helix MD motor drive on a Wilderness System Attack 120. Obviously, the mounting is very clean. The only disappointing thing is the system that writes the propeller that broke in the first month of use.
Yep. What he's talking about is that, in order to bring it up through the hull, there's a where you have to bring the motor up, similar to the Hobie Evolve.
Okay.
The Hobie Evolve has a little metal plate that shoves down there that lines up the propeller in the way that Wilderness Systems did it. And I was part of that development when I was pro staffing for them. Is basically a plunger thing that you pull up that it's almost like an axe handle that hits the blade and lines it up. And it is a problematic design with that one. And it's still a good motor. But I know I have an Attack 120 and I have the ultralight on the back. I've been working with Wilderness Systems. They made a foot control steering kit specifically for the Torqeedo. They have the throttle mount for the Torqeedo, and they're working on a stern plate for all their boats, to get the new mount, the 4-bolt pattern on there. So they've been good to work with.
So many of the boats now are making the back end, so they will accommodate that power pole. And then like the Primals mount, it works with those same holes.
Right.
And I'm thinking that your guys' new mount does too, doesn't it?
It does.
It does. Yep. So, yeah. And I'm going to bring up your guys' webpage in a couple minutes here, and we'll kind of go over the different motors and we can kind of show the cool stuff that you guys have got. But we'll say hi to a couple more people. Scott from Wisconsin, how you doing? Nikita, how are you? Jeremy, joining us all the time. Thanks, man. Joshua Evans. So good to see Jeff on here, the Wizard of the Susky right there. What is that?
Hey, man. It's just my home water, the Susquehanna River, all the beautiful smallmouth up on that mile-wide river that is a huge drainage. I think it's the East Coast biggest river, biggest watershed is the Susquehanna River. It starts off it flows in right at the top of the Chesapeake Bay. It really sort of is an extension of the Chesapeake. The river channel that comes off it is, that's the main tributary for the Chesapeake Bay. So,
Greg, what's the weight on the battery? These things are light.
Yeah.
It's not like putting the old deep cycle car battery. These things are light.
I'd actually have to look at it in the catalog to tell you, but it's, like 9 pounds, something like that.
Yeah, if that. I mean,
well, that's
or at least my old ones.
Yeah, the big one. So when they went from the 320 to the 915 watt hour battery, it's the same size box. They just, the way that that lithium cells, the technology gets better every year, and where
for sure
the lithium cells a couple years ago were the size of a shotgun shell. Now they're the size of like a AAA battery, and you can just fit more inside the same space, and that's what they did. So
yeah, the battery technology's come such a long way. Dave Fowler has a question. Do you see a system like the iPilot being integrated into the system?
I wish. I worked with ProNav to investigate, and we actually, showed some of that at ICAST last year. Unfortunately, that development has fizzled. It's not totally dead, but it's certainly gone cold in terms of something that can do like spot lock or run a route or something like that.
All right. Good to know. Scott, can you get spare batteries for fishing remote locations?
You can, and I used to carry 2 of the 320 watt hour batteries. The other option, actually Matt Trucks and I were out on Assateague Island a couple of years back, and he was camping, and he used the solar charger. It's a slow charge, and honestly the better option is to have a second battery, but he did leave one battery on the picnic table in camp, when we went fishing, and we came back and he had gained, I don't know, 40 couple percent in a day. So it kind of takes 2 days to recharge it with solar. It's better if it charges fast, if you can plug it in. But the 915, I really, there are guys that do 2-day tournaments on one battery, and it's hard to kill one in a day. And, the day that, like I said, the day that I had over 25 miles on one battery, that was tide and wind and everything else. So it's kind of hard to exhaust a 915. I have yet to do it. So
yeah, I said if you just go at normal cruising speed, even with the older, smaller batteries that I have,
right?
You can go all day. It's amazing, and like I said, they're so light. But there are, yes, to answer the question, you can get a spare battery. They are. I saw them on the website. You can buy backup batteries. We got a very long question here from John. Let's see if that whole thing comes up here. There's a certain someone that shall remain nameless that has bashed Torqeedo, saying the motor is too small and is a toy motor. Can you explain the motor and gearbox setup that Torqeedo uses? I understand it, but it might be a good information for folks that go by the bigger is better mantra. And yeah, explain, what's the difference between a Minn Kota motor versus a Minn Kota trolling motor versus a Torqeedo motor? What were we looking at that differentiates the Torqeedo?
So when let me just talk about electric motors in general. The basic design is that you have, let me see if I use my hand, you have your copper coils, and inside the copper coil, you put the magnet, and the magnet interacts with that when you apply electricity, and it spins there. When they came up with these motors, they said, let's invert that relationship. Instead of the magnet going in between, we're going to put a bell housing around the outside, so you have lots of magnets around it. So that is a magnification of torque by having more magnets. Now, the magnets that you have in a Torqeedo are not the same as the ferrite magnets you'd see in a Minn Kota trolling motor. They're rare earth magnets, which are very expensive, but they're also 6 times more powerful per weight. Again, another magnification of torque. And that comes into play with doing things like, Jim, what you did, towing your buddy in. You doubled, you probably doubled your weight in taking your buddy in a mile. How much did your speed suffer?
Not terribly,
because of all that torque. It's able to push a lot of weight with all that torque. Now that torque is expressed in a propeller blade that most propeller blades are offset just a little bit. The Torqeedo propeller blades are really aggressive in their pitch. So each time it turns, it's just taking big chunks of water. It's taking big bites each turn. It's actually a low RPM motor. So it's not spinning as fast as a trolling motor, even a gas motor. But with each turn, it's taking a lot more water and putting it behind it. So that's really what differentiates it as a different motor than, say, even in the prop design compared to a gas motor. But certainly it's different than than a trolling motor. The other part is that it's a digital brushless motor. Now, the brushless comes into effect in terms of its longevity, how long these things last. Jim, you've got some that are several years old, and they're going at this. They're pushing whatever boat that you put them on at the same speed, being 5 years old, as they do when they were brand new 5 years ago, which is unlike a trolling motor, that because it has brushes, which are basically electrical contact points inside the motor that wear out. Those brushes and the contact points, it loses its power over time. I've not experienced it myself, but I've talked to enough folks that started with a Minn Kota on a kayak and then switched and upgraded to the Torqeedo. And that's, you hear things like, yeah, when I started out, with the Minn Kota or whatever, water snake, whatever it is, I was getting 4 point whatever. A year later, it was down to 3.7 as the top speed. So I replaced the battery, and that really only brought me back up to about 3.9. And then a year later, it was only doing 2.8. And that's just the brushes wearing out.
Yeah, I actually saw a guy did a video about that, and not recently, and kind of describing how that whole worked, and
Right.
it was quite interesting. And I learned a lot. Steven,
the other, I'm going to jump into one other difference though, and it comes to there's a GPS unit in the battery, which is kind of cool to know your speed, but you can tell your speed if you got a nice depth finder on there. And I use speed all the time to pattern the fish, to know, okay, the striper in the Chesapeake in the early season, they wanted about 2.8 miles per hour. As it warms up, I go faster, whatever. It's useful for that, but that's not why it's in there. The reason why it has a GPS is that it ultimately calculates your remaining range at whatever throttle setting you have it at.
I love that about it. I absolutely love that.
It's sort of like having a gas gauge, and most electric. I mean, it's the only electric motor that I know that really, very specifically down to the. You can set it in terms of the remaining range in terms of hours and minutes, or you can set it for distance, but it'll tell you to the 10th of a mile how much more range you have left. And if you're, say, you have it at 43% of your remaining battery percentage, and you're going full speed, and it says, all right, you can go 3.8 miles at that speed, and you're thinking, I need 4. So you back off a hair, and you see that number on the throttle grow, and you say, cool, I can get in, and not be running out of power when I need it. So
yeah, that is so useful. I mean, I look at that all the time.
Yep.
It's a very good tool. Stephen Yamamoto says hello from Washington. Zachariah Clift, where is Torqeedo made?
Torqeedo motors are made in Germany. The Torqeedo is based in Starnberg, Germany, and Lake Starnberg is where they were developed. It was 2 German guys that worked for Gardenia, which is they make like gardening tools. They were engineers. That they were boaters. They were going out on Lake Starnberg, where you couldn't use a combustion engine by regulation, and they looked at what was available and said, we can do better. And they made something better, and other people saw them using it and saying, wow, you're really going fast. Where'd you get that? Well, we made it. Could you make another? And it snowballed from there and became a company that it became Torqeedo. And Torqeedo's actually been purchased. It was about a year and a half ago by a company called Deutz. Deutz is a very old German diesel engine manufacturer. So think about, why is a diesel company, and they go back to the 1800s. I mean, they had, Heinrich Otto, inventor of the automobile, working for them. The Daimlers worked for them. Diesel himself, who invented it, was one of the founders. Why is a what's going on there? And people looked into that, and I think once they bought Torqeedo, their stock went up like 30%. What's going on there? And I'll just I'll cut it short and just explain that they are looking at our battery management technology and the patents we have, and tapping into our engineering resources to convert diesel engines into cleaner energy technology. So that's why we were purchased, and they're doing some cool stuff. So
that's very cool.
Yep.
Robert Brown, hello everyone. They make great towing setups. Yes, they do. Jameson, of course, he had the travel motor, and we had days where he towed several of us.
Right.
I've said
I've been throwing my kids on it for years, where I'd have the motor, and I would grab one son on one side and clip the boga grip to the front grab loop of his kayak, and get a fish grip on the other son, and just say, all right, we're going. And we would go 3 wide, just scooting. And then we get close to where we were going. I'd unclip them. I say, go fish, go play, go splash, whatever we're doing. And then, when weather would come up, or when it was time to get home, I'd chase them down and grab them and clip onto the kayak, and we're scooting back to the ramp quickly. So
yeah, and I tell you what, when that wind and just gets nasty in the end of the day, it's great. I mean, I've said it before. They will make you lazy, but they are so much fun. They're such a great tool. Alexander, love the weight on the Torqeedo Helix motor drive, 15 pounds total motor and battery.
Yeah, it's the wilderness version.
Oh, okay. Yes, Corinder, I'm using StreamYard. People will always ask me what software I'm using for this. It is StreamYard. John Dent's digital brushless motor I not really understand, plus 2 worn brushes, or equals worn brushes, or it's a plus because it's no worn brush.
Yeah. He understands it though.
Yeah. How many different size blades do you have for styles of prop?
So when you're talking about the ultralight, there's one prop, and they have a guy that whenever they have a new product, a propeller designer, he's a guy that actually works on like submarine props and commercial ship props, and they get him working on theirs to really optimize it. When you go to the travel motor, there's a travel 1003 and then the new travel 1103, and they reworked the propeller for the 1103. The 1103 is really cool because it is a change in the design from its current status, which has a reduction gear, which makes a little bit of a little whine that you hear, to a direct drive. The travel 1103, being a direct drive, is silent, and it's something that I think came about mostly because of the European market, people putting them on dinghies and sailboats up to 1.5 tons. That 3 horsepower can push a sailboat up to 1.5 tons. People use them to get them out of the marina, and then they go sailing. But I think the European market just appreciated a quieter motor. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., they're like, I don't know what the problem is. We're used to gas motors, so it's not noisy at all. But we are working on something more powerful on the ultralight side, and I've hinted at it, and I can't say anything, but you'll see something really cool at ICAST this year. That is more power for the kayak motor market, and you don't need to look any further than the travel 1103 to make some assumptions and figure it out.
I will definitely swing by there and probably do another broadcast from there at the show for people who can't, because it is an industry only show.
Make sure you catch the if you can do the on the water thing.
Oh, okay. Are you gonna have some stuff on the water for ICAST this year?
Yes.
I don't, because that's on Tuesday, right?
I don't know what day it is, but I know we signed up for it, and I'm driving down from Maryland with this, with that setup.
Yeah. I don't get in until Tuesday night, and I think that's on Tuesday morning. There were some other questions here. I saw, Scott likes my t-shirt from the Pro Kayak Fishing. It's from the guys up in Central California. I appreciate it. They sent me that from one of their tournaments. Joey had a question. How accurate is the range calculation?
So it's based on the battery percentage, the watt draw, which it definitely knows that, and then ultimately the GPS. And what you're ultimately asking is the GPS accurate? And I've matched it to depth finders, like a lot of different depth finders over the years, and it usually it's within 0.1 mile per hour. And I don't know which is, if it's off, if they're disagreeing, it's like for a second, and then it adjusts. So I think it is accurate.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've looked at my GPS, at least on the miles per hour, and the miles per hour on the Torqeedo gauge. And I'll show this here in a second so people can see exactly what we're talking about if they haven't looked at them. But on the controller, you have all your numbers, and it's pretty interesting. And Zachariah goes to show that great products can be made outside of the USA. So, and again, for anybody who is interested, Jeff was very kind to arrange that we are going to be giving away a $250 gift certificate good towards Torqeedo through OEX Kayak Fishing Supplies here in San Diego. So we always, wait 24 hours to draw the winner, but somebody will have that opportunity if they are interested in a Torqeedo in getting that prize, and we really appreciate that. Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Torqeedo website and kind of look at the this is the ultralight, and this is the new motor mount that I'm
that's the new mount. The bolts to the same 4-bolt pattern you see on a lot of different kayaks. We actually yesterday at Jackson Kayak put them on a couple of their boats they're working on, and they were scooting along. I think we had one that hit 5.4 miles per hour. The fastest I've seen was a boat that hit 5.7. But yeah, that mount is something that has a stow function where you can kind of pull the motor up, and it tucks up into the framework of that aluminum bracket on the top. If you look at the hinge point on the side facing us of that bracket, there's that's a quick release, same as a front wheel on a mountain bike. So you can pop that whole thing off pretty quickly. There's trim adjustments on the bottom of that. That's 4 different holes. Yep, that's it. And there's a reverse lock that you just can't see from that angle. That basically, if you're scooting forward and the motor hits something, it'll swing up. But if you're in open water and you're casting downwind and you want to just fight the wind just a little bit and keep your boat, your kayak from drifting into the spot you're casting at, you can use that reverse. The reverse lock is a cord that kind of comes through the center of that bracket, and it connects to there's some kind of hinge in there with that locks onto that trim adjustment pin. And then up top there's the motor lift. What you need beyond that is, and this is what I've been doing in the industry, is working with major kayak manufacturers to basically make rudder kits without rudders. I know that sounds pretty simple, but it's you need something to foot control steer it. And whenever people said, had asked me, how do you source all those things? Like, well, you get a rudder kit and use everything except for the rudder to steer
Right.
these things. So I worked first with Wilderness Systems. They released one. I think late last year it was finally out. And then Bonafide is getting ready to release one. And then, I've been working with Jackson here recently. Also, Select Design, Ryan Hannigan up in Washington. He's working on. He already has all that equipment, and that's some of his stuff is what I've used to motorize everything from a Sea Eagle inflatable stand up paddleboard to a new canoe to I've put foot control steering on a Hobie Pro Angler. I've motorized a lot of different boats using Select Design parts. So
Yeah, they make nice stuff.
Yep. We actually sourced their it doesn't show it there, but there's a for the motor lift. When you lift it up and you come shallow, we use their Clam Cleat Junior that fits. He gave us some. We sourced that from Ryan, and it's a track mounted cleat. So
you scroll down here a little bit. You have the ultralight 403, the 403C, the 403A,
yep.
and a C.
Let's do the Torqeedo alphabet. The 403 is just it's the ultralight, but it's with the old style. It's the old style ball mount, which worked on a lot of different kayaks, but it took some doing. Like, it was a little bit of a daunting install if you hadn't done it yourself. And honestly, the kayak shops that did well with Torqeedo before the new mount were ones that understood how to set that up and the geometry of how to get it centered and on the foot control steering. But when they came up with this, they were actually thinking that it would be the touring kayak market that would grab a hold of this. But it was kayak fishing that this particular product is grown with, and that really was designed with the touring kayak in mind. So after 9 years, we said, all right, we got to do an update and really make it as easy as possible to install on today's fishing kayaks. So the 403, if it doesn't have the A on it, it's the ball style mount. The A designates the new A mount or angler mount.
Okay.
If it has C, like the 403C or the 403AC, the C stands for capacity, as in the higher capacity battery. So that's the one you're getting with the 915 watt hour battery. So the 403 and the 403A come with a 320 watt hour battery, and the 403C and the 403AC come with a 915 watt hour battery. And
there's a bit of a price differential there for sure.
Yeah, it's $500, and basically you're buying more lithium cells. Everything's the same between the 403A and 403AC, except for you're buying more lithium cells in the same size. That battery box is the same with the 320 or the 915.
Do these have a connector that you could use, like for charging a phone or anything like that?
That's about the extent of it. It actually comes with a little USB a USB plug that screws into the where you charge it. People all the time want to know, hey, can I run my depth finder off of it? No, it's its own kind of weird, unique 29.6 volt system. I think it probably, there's someone out there that'll figure out how to convert it to 12 volt to run stuff. But right now it's its own unique thing. But yeah, I have used it to charge the phone. But I think it's like a little 5 amp fuse in there, and you're not going to get bigger pieces of electronic equipment running off of it. So
I'm gonna pop that up so people have a better look at what that throttle looks like, and you can kind of see since I've
so you
zoomed
see
in
the
here.
4 numbers. The top number is the remaining battery percentage. The next one down is your that 11.3 in this example is your remaining range. So whoever's using that at 273 watts, which is the bottom number, and going 4.5 miles per hour, can maintain that 4.5 miles per hour for another 11.3 miles. The 273, that in theory should go up to 400 because it's a 400 watt motor, as opposed to the travel motor is either 1,000 or 1,100 watt motor. So there's more peak output with that 3 horsepower, but you're also using up more of that energy quicker at peak output. So
Right.
it's the analogy I like is it's sort of like going from a 2-barrel carburetor to a 4-barrel. It's going to suck down more gas. So,
and this little orange thing, don't leave that at home.
Yeah,
that is your
kill switch. The kill switch or the magnet. If you lose one of these, in fact, I did a video that I put over on the Torqeedo ultralight owners group about a month ago, saying, "Hey, here's some spare parts you may want to hold on to, like a spare prop and shear pins, and that little magnetic key was one of them." I've lost one by leaving the throttle on the truck and car topping it and going and the wind just caught the little tag on it, and I got there. I'm like, uh-oh. If that happens to you and you don't have a spare, you can go to the hardware store and buy a little round magnet and stick it on there, and it'll run.
There you go. Good to know. We actually left a magnet on one boat and moved the motor to another boat, and then got to the location, and because the magnet was attached to the boat,
right?
And so we were out of business that morning anyway. That happens.
Yep.
We got a couple more questions in here. John, let me drop that down for the moment.
John asked, can you purchase the new mount separately? Yes, you can. It's $249, and you can put your old pylon from the 438 into that mount. Here's my cautionary word on this, though. When I worked to develop this mount, I tested it on lots of different boats. They set prototypes, and I slapped it on a Bonafide SS127 and a Wilde Attack 140 and a Jackson Coosa HD. I mean, I put it on all these different boats to see if there was any problems. And the problems, as they were with the new mount and the old length pylon, was that some of the boats were taller in the stern, like a SS120, a Bonafide SS127. The Hobie Pro Angler, when you put that power pole adapter plate on there, it brings it up a little bit more. And what that does is it lifts the propeller up high enough that you're cavitating, or is actually the word is ventilation. But if I say ventilation, people think about opening the window in the bathroom, not air behind your prop. But you know what I'm saying, it doesn't get the propeller deep enough. So that's why when we released the 403A, that pipe that comes out of the top of the black football is actually 4 centimeters longer, or 10 centimeters longer, which is about 4 inches longer, so you can get it deep enough. So if you have there's 3 boats I know that it was problematic with. The Hobie Pro Angler, the Bonafide SS127, and then the Jackson Big Rig was another one. Richard Penny actually tested that one for me, and he said that he got a little bit of cavitation in one of the trim adjustments. And no, that's where I went back to the engineers. I'm like, we need a longer pipe. So
just out of curiosity, how far below the water should that thing be? Is there a rule of thumb?
There's not a rule of thumb, but I know somewhere in my research notes that I have a very specific measurement, but it's about like that. I don't know. What is that?
The top of
the propeller, the top of the propeller here in the water line there. So
okay.
I don't know. Is that 3 3/4, approaching 4 inches? One thing is interesting though. I tested the 1103 pylon on different kayaks, and that propeller is a little bit different. The blade is a little bit less concave, and I can get that one much closer, which means that you can keep the motor shallower. So it's an interesting difference in propeller design.
Gary asked, which one is the direct drive style?
The 1103, the travel 1103 find the travel motor on there, which is a 3 horsepower. Yep. So
maybe right there.
There's a happy German on his boat, and you have him using the travel motor there, and then you have the 503, which is a 500 watt, the 1003, which is 1,000 watt, 1003C has the big battery, and then you go to the 1103C, that is the direct drive. I've put that one on. That's the one I put on the Live Water Sports board. They got 6.8 miles per hour. I put them on a new canoe Pursuit, and it scoots along at 6 point something. I can't remember. Jameson had the 1003 on his Blue Sky Boat Works Angler 360. That I think hit 6.4 miles per hour. And we've also worked with Trade Innovative Sportsmen to be able to put the ultralight centered on that. Now you did the 2 on either side. Where I mounted it was in the center, where that just replacing the rudder.
Right. Now, was that something one of the guys was doing, because you guys had developed some linkage for the Blue Sky to attach directly to the motor?
Yeah. The Angler 360. Well, I think initially Jameson had just played around with the transom mount and put the travel motor on it, and he was happy with that. But I looked at it at one of the shows. I'm like, the stick steer on the seat is pretty cool. We should do something to preserve that, as opposed to constantly, tilting back with your arm straight back, right, steering it. And I worked with Trey at Innovative Sportsman, and he came out with a mounting bracket for the frame of the Angler 360. He came up with a linkage for the existing, basically stick steer cable to connect with that. I think he used he said it was actually like a throttle linkage for a jet ski. He's pretty creative in finding, parts that you wouldn't, in other applications that he's worked with before. And then, we found a way to get the Yak Attack throttle mount on the seat. So as you're sitting on it, you have your throttle, right here, and then you have the stick steer on either side.
And again, that's how I have mine. They have their lock and load system.
Yep.
And the side of that seat has gear track on it, and they've made the throttle mount for the Torqeedo. And it is, I have the dual controls,
right?
And I tied the 2 controllers together with some aluminum, that I can flip up and separate them. It's just super, super fun.
It is cool.
Just joined in. Thanks for joining us. Gary actually had another question. Does it have fuses, visible link, or relay to reset?
The fuses are all inside the battery, and I know that the fuses are there really to have multiple layers of of safety. If anyone knows anything about lithium batteries, they have a bad history of blowing up and burning, and they're hard to put out. And Torqeedo, knowing that, went into this saying, we have to have the safest, setup out there, and we have, and it comes down to pyro fuses, ones that detect heat, ones that detect a disbalance, like where this bank of lithium cells has more power than the ones next to it, and it detects that and shuts it down for safety reasons. So
yeah, you'll get error codes as well on your controller. I know if you have the motor up, it won't let you engage it.
That's another safety feature that, with the idea, if you flip your kayak, you don't, you have the safety feature of the kill switch and the magnet, but if you say stick it on there and don't have it attached to your PFD, they didn't want, after you flip the kayak, it running over you and hitting you with the blades. So there's a tilt sensor where as it rotates up to a certain angle, it shuts it off, just as a safety measure. So
yeah, I've actually had it up and like, why isn't this thing working?
Hey,
and
then 4.
Yeah.
Air code 4. Yeah.
John, and this will lead up to another thing. Trim is also important to getting the best performance out of the motor system. And you have an article here that talks about, and I will bring that back up again. And this was for Kayak Angler magazine. And
so look at that boat right there that I'm sitting in. This was during a photo shoot in Germany. The length of the boat from the rear of the seat pan where I'm sitting to the stern, I keep track of that distance divided by the total length of the boat. And the thing that I'm finding out is that boats that have a lot of the length of the boat behind you perform better than those that have, your seat closer to the stern. And what that means in terms of it, how the boat rides at speed, if you have a lot of weight in the stern, the bow pushes up and it pushes inefficiently. Whereas if you have the angler weight closer to the front, it pushes the bow down and it rides flat and it rides efficiently. If you, Jim, go ahead and scroll down, and I actually have some of the numbers in that, and I don't name them, by brand and model, but you can get the idea of that seat ratio. That top number of 0.45, that means 45% of the length of the boat is behind the seat pan, whereas you have, one down near the bottom was at 38%. Some of them are 36, aren't as they don't perform as well. That's not the only thing. The other factors that make for an efficient propulsion hull is length. The longer boats tend to just have really nice glide, and overall weight. Lighter boats, scoot along a little bit easier. So.
Right, and this article is packed with information about that, and that's why, again, when we designed the Kraken, for paddle ability, it comes into play, and of course with the motor pushing it, having an adjustable seat where you can adjust the trim of the boat based on the load you're carrying, your own weight. If you've got a fish bag up front, if you've got a live bait tank in the back, or whatever it is. Most of Jackson kayaks do have adjustable trim on their seats. And I'll tell you what, even on that Blue Sky, the seat itself is on a slide, and it's noticeable just watching that water come off the bow, right. Whether you're pushing water or whether you get that back end up a little bit and get that bow down a little bit, how much more efficient that boat is. And the nice thing is you can look right on your GPS, adjust your seat and go, and never touch the throttle, just adjust your seat and go, oh, okay. You can, it's
so noticeable. I did an install video with Matt Ball, and we did an install on a Jackson Liska. In fact, that was actually the picture you just scooted past. We went out and tested it, and he went out and caught that 6-pound largemouth in West Virginia, like right at the end of the day. Most of the day we were rigging, but as we were scooting to that spot, Matt was sliding the seat back, and he was getting like, I forget what it was, like 5.1 miles per hour, and then he would all at once shove the weight forward, and the nose would drop down, and he's like, I'm getting 5.4 now. So, and it was, I don't know how far that seat slides. I don't think it's any more than like 14 inches. But for 14 inches of weight redistribution forward, you get 0.3 miles per hour. That's pretty significant. And I think it speaks to the need in the industry to build boats with seating that is more forward. You can move that seat forward, but you also need the corresponding front of the footwell to also move forward. And that's a lot of what that article was about, was a plea to, hey, let's move our seating forward, because to be honest, most of us put all of our gear weight or much of our gear weight behind us, which, even if you have it empty and it's trimmed out like this, and then you put more, you put a power pole on the back, and then you put your black pack with 60 pounds of gear, and you get what I'm saying. It's
right. No, I notice it on that seat on the Blue Sky. I mean, if I just adjust it just a few inches, like this much, I will notice how that bow will come up or down. And that's why you have trim tabs on boats and adjustable trim on your motor, just to help you with all of those things. But in a kayak, it's more a matter of adjusting your load, which is the load is you for the most part. Right. We're going to take a couple more questions. Actually, we're already at an hour. I told you these things fly by.
Yep. How many kayaks roughly have I tried it on? I tallied them at some point, and I can't, it's over 30. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of boats. But I will tell you, those are the installs that I've done. I didn't really keep track of, for instance, I had one on a Wilderness Systems Tarpon 160, and that thing flew, but I have no idea how fast it went. It kills me that I don't know, but right. I didn't start keeping track of watt draw at each mile per hour and top speed until I started working for Torqeedo. And really, I did want to figure out what is the most optimal hull. And as an industry, we're not there yet.
And John asks, do you see kayak manufacturers designing hulls for motor systems like Torqeedo?
Yes. I've had these discussions. Here's what's cool about having a GPS unit in a motor, is that it at least for designing the most efficient hull, it is an objective measure. I can tell that this boat goes 5.4 miles per hour. This boat goes 5.7. This one goes 5.5. When I pro staffed and worked in product development with Wilderness Systems, like I was part of the team that made the Attack 120 and 140 and the Tarpon 130X and then the Radar. Let's use the Radar as an example. Was designed as a pedal drive kayak, but before they even let me play with the pedal drive, they were like, Jeff, we want to know that it paddles well. And the only thing I had to give them was a very subjective response of, I took it out on the Chesapeake, I took it up on the river, I took it to the Tidal Potomac, and it paddled well. Well, there's no numbers on that. There's just a subjective feel. Whereas with the Torqeedo, 5.6, 5.4, whatever it is. So that tells you very specifically, hey, you're getting better or you're getting worse in efficient propulsion. And whatever gains, this is something I do want to drive home, and I talk about it in that article. Whatever gains you're getting in efficient propulsion with the motor, you're also going to see an improvement in how it paddles and how it pedals, because we're not planing boats with these motors. They're working in the displacement range of speeds. And if it works better with the Torqeedo, going to work better with a paddle or whatever pedal drive system you have.
Exactly. Looks like there's this is the last question. Is there a hard number comparison for the 403 versus the Bixby in terms of torque, battery capacity, top speed, longevity, etc.?
So I've done a lot of videography over the years. I did a lot on kayak bass fishing going back 10 years or so, and I have my own YouTube channel, and most of it's very positive. But I have more negative comments on my Torqeedo versus Bixby video. And the reason I did that video is because someone had claimed you were getting 6-point whatever with her Bixby. I said, no, you're not. I know without even testing it, but I tested it, and I do have a comparison video up on my YouTube channel. It's called The Little Stuff. Is the name of my YouTube channel, but you can check it out. And what I do is I show your top speed with the Bixby, your top speed with, on the same boat with the Torqeedo, and then the range at each speed, at each setting that the Bixby has. The Torqeedo is a better motor than the Bixby, but that being said, the Bixby is a good motor because it is a brushless motor. It is a better option than a Minn Kota. It is going to get you more range. I don't know about the speed, but when they're brand new, but I would surmise that, if you have a Bixby that's 3 years old and been used for 3 years, it's going to be faster than a Minn Kota that's been used for 3 years. So Bixby's a good motor. It's just not quite on the same level as Torqeedo, and it has a lower price point, to match. So it's a matter of what, how vested you are and what level of performance you're willing to pay for.
Gotcha. So we brought up the site. It is Torqeedo.com, and you said you have your YouTube channel, The Little Stuff.
Yep.
Any other way that people want to see this stuff?
I do a lot of videography with Team Torqeedo anglers. Recently, I did a whole offshore kayak fishing set of videos with Matthew Van down in Pensacola. I think we had 10 different videos. I still have to put up a few of them. I think we got 9 of them up. Amanda Brannon and Matthew and I went out, and Seth Dalton was another one that joined us, and we did some offshore stuff. Torqeedo kayak fishing on Facebook is where we put a lot of information in terms of new mounts, different install videos that we've done, anything that they need, that folks that are interested in Torqeedo ultralights in particular, they're going to find it Torqeedo Kayak Fishing. There's also an owners group called Torqeedo Ultralight Owners, and I actually have a library of install videos that I've kept up over the years on there. So if someone says, "Hey, I have such and such a model, and I want to do the install, what do I need?" Most likely, there's an install video for whatever you have.
No, that's going to be super helpful.
Yeah.
So I got 2 more questions. John says, "See you at the paddle sports retailer."
Sure.
Are you going to be a paddle sports retailer?
We'll be at paddle sports retailer. We'll be at ICAST. Beyond doing everything I do with with the ultralight motors, I also do all our trade shows for Torqeedo.
Awesome, Jeff. I'm going to let you go, man, because like I said, I know you're going to be at doing the demo day. Where's that demo day again tomorrow? It's
Appomattox River Company in Farmville, Virginia. Wilkes Lake is actually where they hold it, and I will have a Bonafide SS127 with ultralight on there, and invite anyone to come out and take it for a spin. I got a couple spare batteries, so we're gonna tear it up.
Very cool, man. Well, I can't thank you enough, man. That's been a lot of fun and very, very informative. And thanks for the donation of that gift certificate. Yep. And again, for people who are watching, we'll be selecting that. We give people a chance to watch this later, and we'll be choosing that tomorrow. But good luck at the demo day tomorrow, and I will see you at ICAST.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks
Take care, buddy.
See you, man.
Well, man, that was a great show. Thanks, everybody who joined us. And thanks again. My dog wants out of the room. Thanks, everybody who joined us. And thanks, Jeff, for joining us. Like I said, we ran a little bit over today, but it was just so much information. Our shows, again, are brought to you by Ballast Point Brewing Company, and we thank them for their support. And if you guys are going out on the water this weekend, please wear your PFD, make sure you're seen, and keep your paddle right side up. You all take care.
What I want is